And I truly believe that Indian Asian parents, we raise our kids still rooted in a very Indian way, matched and backed by science that we are now aware of. The doors to home will always be open, whether it's 3 a.m., you've lost your way, or, and this is one place you will not be judged. Whether it's the LGBTQI community or any other problem that your child has, the minute a parent's arm goes around the child, you are creating, and that embrace happens, you are creating a wall. 116 million children, according to UNICEF 2023 report, are children who are facing a mental health crisis. 50 million in India. It's never I told you so. That level, that way of parenting is no longer going to work.
Okay.
So it's about, let's do it together.
The toughest job in the world pays nothing in monetary terms. It's called parenting. However, it is rewarding in many other ways. Our guest today on this episode has built a thriving career out of it. She is a conscious parenting coach and the founder of Kids Stop Press, which is the largest discovery platform for parents in India. As if this wasn't enough, she is also an author. Very pleased to have with us on Buzz by the Bay, one of the most popular influencers in the parenting space, Mansi Zaveri.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Buzz by the Bay.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. And of course, I follow your social media and I see all your very useful updates.
Thank you.
You are also a mom of 2 girls. Would you call yourself a mompreneur? I see that seems to be a very popular word these days.
I don't know, whatever you may call it, I'm just a mom who goes out there every single day and manages to do something that she deeply, deeply enjoys. You can put me under any bucket, under any label. It doesn't really matter because I just absolutely enjoy doing what I do.
Okay, that's amazing. And it shows, right? And when you enjoy it, you do it with authenticity. It really shows. And that's the secret of success.
You can't not enjoy it. I mean, you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't enjoy it, because I've been there for the last 10 years, right? I started like when influencing was not even a thing. And parenting influencing, I don't think people even knew. Like they thought it was like a hobby job, or even 10 years later I find myself still explaining people that it's not a side hustle, it's a mainstream thing. And parenting coaching and counseling and empowering parents is a job, and it's a business, right? So they don't get it. But yes, to being the first parenting influencer in the country, to today having a digital reach of upwards of 20 million a month, it's been a journey.
Coming to your life initially, like you left behind a corporate life, you had a corporate job, and then you started Kids Stop Press, which is this great platform, a discovery platform you call it, which I've seen has recipes, meal plans, games for children, alternatives to phone, alternative to screen time, yoga ideas, so much. I mean, how did you think of this and why?
I left the corporate space fully aware that I am ready to leave it at a time when I am ready. I'm not going to blame my child for the rest of her life. I left a flourishing career because of you, right? I didn't want that. So I continued to work 2.5 years after my firstborn. And I did that till I found what I wanted to do next. And strangely, I keep saying, everybody calls me the founder, but my kids say you're not the founder, because we are the founders. Because literally, in trying to raise my first one is where I saw this really large gap of not knowing what to do with your kids, or what to get your kids, or how to raise them, while I was raising my own 15 years ago, because everything was so Western. And I truly believe that Indian Asian parents, we raise our kids still rooted in a very Indian way, matched and backed by science that we are now aware of. Strangely, I truly believe in this thing that Oprah said, that life gives you 3 whispers before they become loud noises. For me, first whisper was driving from Metro Theatre to Worli, where I lived, and I would not look up at any of the Marine Drive billboards. I mean, you know what Marine Drive billboards meant at one point in time. And if you've read If you've left that medium redundant, then there's something, right? And this is 15 years ago. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm constantly on my phone. So that was whisper one, that digital is going to be a thing in the future. The second was also understanding that every human being is spending close to about 60% of their waking up time in front of a device. So again, it's got to be digital. The second one was that I traveled with my then 2.5-year-old to the US, and I just traveled alone with her, figuring out what to do in each city. And I was like, you know, there's got to be something like this back home. And the third was that the other mothers wouldn't actually tell me what they're doing with their kids, because I was still a full-time working mom, working 8 to 8, not having access, because there was nothing. Even if I had to take my child to a zoo, I didn't know what the damn timings was.
Yeah.
What the timings were, right? So how do you go?
Yeah.
Like, what animals do you see? Is it even worth going or not going, right? How do you get access to this information? So it was just lack of access.
Yeah.
So therefore I was like, okay, I have to create something which is digital, which empowers parents and helps them make informed choices. And that's exactly how Kids Chopra was born in 2013.
That's a great journey, and it arose out of your own needs, out of your own passion. You know, you identified a gap. All right. I like that you say you've tailored it to meet, you know, to include Indian values, Indian traditions, which is so important, right? We were never brought up in typically Western ways, and we have our own ecosystem and our own fabric and our own set of rules to follow. Coming to this term conscious parenting, I think it's a fairly new term, right? You're a conscious parenting coach. What is it? Is there something as unconscious parenting? I don't know.
We are constantly being unconscious as human beings. You're not even aware of your surroundings. You are not even aware if somebody needs help. You're not even aware whether it's hot or cold. You're so consumed, right? And it's not only screens. It could be anything else. It could be just, I'm giving screen as an example because that's one of, but you're so unconscious even in the way you're responding to things, because you're responding out of dealing with a whole day of what you've been going through. You've had a bad day at work, somebody said something, you met a lot of traffic on the road, so you're just irritated with all of that, and that kind of comes out to the next best person you meet. So you're not conscious of what you're feeling, you're just passing through every single day without addressing what you've been through, what you are going through, and what you would like to go through. Also, for conscious parenting, it's a relatively new term because we've now started talking about it. And the whole philosophy of conscious parenting is that there's no authoritative style. You and the child are at the same level. So there's no hierarchy in parenting. We're both equal as humans.
Okay.
Right? That's number one. Second is that you've got to be aware of how the other person is feeling, and you're most aware about how you're feeling. So you're not passing that on to the other person, whether it's a child or whatever. And the third most important thing is you're constantly elevating yourself to be more conscious, to be able to deal with situations that life or your child poses at you, right? Because if you're not empowering yourself with knowledge, it's like a degree, right? Consciousness is like a level of degree, right? How you're going from grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3 to grade 4. You can't finish grade 10 in day 1.
Okay, yeah,
so of course. It's an everyday process that you're going through.
Right. Okay. So essentially it's being very aware, and like you said, you know, being equal with your child, constantly elevating.
Biggest premise.
Premise.
That you're not, you're treating the other being as equal to you.
Okay.
Because only then will you have respect.
Right. Okay. Very interesting, and we'll get deeper into that as we go along. Your book, you have just released a book last year, The Parents I Met. Very interesting. I was going through it, and you interview the parents of these successful people, outliers as you call them, whether it's Priyanka Chopra, whether it's Sindhu, it's so many other people from across fields. But in the preface of your book, you said something which actually resonated with me. You said that we grew up in a world that was real and not a bubble, you know. Like the one our kids are growing up in today is far from reality. So what do you mean by that? Are you saying the kids today have it much easier?
I don't think that they have it easier. Definitely not. I think it's every generation feels that their times were tough. Everybody feels like they've had the toughest life. So I don't think it's easier for them at all. When we didn't do well, okay, or when we did well, we were just compared to our neighbor, which is, I said, like Sharma ji ka beta next door. That was your level of competition, right? Today, you're competing with somebody living in some country whose name you've never heard of.
Yeah.
So your success and your failure are both very public.
Yes.
So it's much harder for our kids. As parents, we've forgotten to empower them with lesser conversation than what is reality.
Okay.
And if we're not having that conversations very early on, then I hope that they're not comparing what they see on social or what they see on television or what they see of a friend as this is reality.
And this because there's so much more access to the way people are living all over the world. So in that sense, you're talking about a bubble, right? I mean, so many more choices, so much more access. It's like information overload, sensory overload,
Absolutely.
all that. All right, yeah, that for sure, that is a fact, and that has its own repercussions, definitely. And I think it's for parents to then ground their children and make them understand what is really reality.
I feel it's not so much about grounding, but sharing what is as is. I don't know why parents are so scared to talk to their kids about, or say a simple thing like, I can't afford it. Or, yes, of course we can do this, but can we do it next year? Let's save up for it. Right?
Okay.
Whether it's money or whether it's about, hey, you did well, but how can I help you to make this work better? I don't see parents talking or having that conversation with their kids about failure. I like, there are days when, when I've not had a great day or somebody said something to me and I cried out to my kids and they see me in that spot. I've just lost some business and I will talk to them that, listen, today wasn't a great day. This happened, or I'm supposed to work on this campaign. What should I do? What do you think is the route? It's very collaborative. They see my struggles. They have to see the highs and the lows to know that that's human. That's life.
No, absolutely. So what you're essentially saying is you got to learn to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
In front of your children. Vulnerability is important. And you think that it's specifically in India that parents don't open up? Like you very interestingly said, why can't you tell your child, look, cannot afford this right now, wait a few months. You think that people, it is a bit awkward, right? I can imagine a parent feeling a bit awkward about telling their child that.
But it's about how much importance do you give to that thing, right? And it stems from parenting. It stems from how comfortable or secure you are as a person. Today, I see so many people, and they want to, if your conversations are about a materialistic thing, whether it's a bag or a holiday or a pair of shoes or a dress or where you threw your last party, your kids are inherently soaking that in, that those are the conversations to have. But if you are building connection through compassion about conversations that mean to you, that you are a human being irrespective of these frills and fancies, and that's what makes you, then that's it. You can't be talking about, okay, we are buying this, but sorry, you asked for this and that's not okay. We're having a conversation, the house needs these repairs right now, so we are going to prioritize that. Then we need to prioritize on getting a health checkup for the family, and then we're going to prioritize this. So can this wait?
Let's come to your book. You talk to some very interesting sets of parents. I want to take a few examples. Before we get into actually these specific parents, I want to ask you, is there any common thread? Right? I get it that there's no set formula for parenting, but from all these parents of these highly successful people or these big achievers, is there any common denominator in their parenting technique? Any common thread?
I think the two or three things that possibly stand out is, one is they all trusted their kids, right? They gave it their all when the kids asked for it.
Yeah.
Right? When I say gave it their all, even with PV Sindhu, right? It's not easy to raise a sports star.
No.
It's a sportsman. You have to have, I think the parent is as committed to the process, and so is in case of any of the others. I don't think we give enough weightage to the amount of time, energy, investment, or the support of the family in making a particular individual successful or out there, the family does pay a price, right? So I think that is number two. I think just the trust in their children, right?
Trust,
And
right.
I think one of the biggest and most important bits is who you are going to become is somewhere sewn into your childhood. Those habits, those nuances, those experiences, those conversations, those emotions, all of it is what you carry into your adult life. And that was the biggest reason for me to write this book, because I truly believed in this hypothesis that who you are is somewhere sewn into your childhood. And that was my starting point for the book. And then as I moved along, trust me, to have a successful person in the book was not my aim. To have a person who's an outlier in their specific field was extremely important to me.
Right.
Because after writing the first two chapters, honestly, my definition of success just changed completely.
So you said your definition of success changed. What did it mean to you then? What does it mean to you now?
You know, I always thought that success would be being, you know, like is winning an Olympic medal success, is being, you know, say a Filmfare Award winner or an Oscar winner, is that success? Or is it, but you know, when I met Pulela Gopichand, he defined success for me. And he said, Mansi, true success in life is the number of lives that you touch. And that kind of just changed my perspective. When I met Captain Anuj Nair, who martyred in the Kargil War, when I met his mom, I mean, how do you define that? How do you not define that as success? Whether he got, I mean, he got a Mahavir Chakra, whether he got a Mahavir Chakra, a Paramvir Chakra, or any other medal, the fact is that he martyred for his country. That to me is success, giving selflessly.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Touching lives, absolutely. Really touching people in a positive, useful way. So coming to some of your examples, Priyanka Chopra's mother, you spoke to her, and she basically talks about, I think she said something about parents need to be parents and not friends.
Yeah.
Did that come from her?
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to agree with that. You know,
Yeah.
what's your view?
No, I agree because I truly believe that you can have many friends, but you can have only one parent. And you know, I keep saying this, and you know, and I keep saying this to my daughter as well, who's 15. There is a boundary between, and we have a great relationship, and she trusts me and I trust her, and we're very friendly. But there is a boundary of I wouldn't say only respect, but a line which is very clearly defined.
Right.
That this side of the line cares for your safety. You are answerable, not because I don't trust you, not because I want to monitor you or I want to hover over you all the time, but because I'm concerned about your safety.
Right.
And she also needs to know that this line you can not cross, but the doors of the line on the other side, which is where I am, will always be open. And like Michelle Obama said when her mom passed away, the doors to home will always be open, whether it's 3 a.m., you've lost your way, or, and this is one place you will not be judged.
No, I like that you know, doors of home are always open to you. And you said something about where you won't be judged, which I also want to talk about later, because I do find sometimes, at least in our society, people are judged, right? And it does cause problems. But coming to Priyanka Chopra, I mean, what was the impression you got from her parents? What stood out?
She stood for her child. She stood for what was best for her child. She actually gave Priyanka a gap year after she came back from the US because she couldn't cope with the Indian way of studying. And that was okay.
Yeah.
She didn't think about what the neighbor is going to think about Priyanka taking a gap year.
Yeah.
Right. And she voiced when she thought something was not okay. Like I remember she mentioning, and it's there in the book, where some producer asked Priyanka to wear really skimpy clothes, and she had a conversation with Priyanka. I don't think this is needed in the script. Do you still want to do it?
No.
And she said, no, Mom, I don't want to do it. And she stood by her. She's like, jo hoga wo saath mein dekhenge.
PV Sindhu, because I find that being a sports person's parent must be, you have to make an immense sacrifice. immense. You give
yes.
up your whole life. It's probably the toughest thing. I mean, now we have the
Absolutely.
Olympics going on, and
Yeah.
you actually see, I mean, so many of the sportsmen, credit their mothers and their parents for where they've reached. What was your experience with PV Sindhu's parents? I mean, they also basically must have given up their entire life for this, right?
So I know when I met Mr. Ramana, he's an absolute sweetheart, and you've got to be somewhere from that. You've got to enjoy the sport as well. He was a volleyball player. His wife is a volleyball player. So you've got to have that love for sports and value that agar iska kuch hua, if not everybody starts playing sports with a vision that I'm going to go to the Olympics or that I'm going to be a national level badminton player.
Yeah.
It's okay if you are even playing for your school or interstate or national or whatever, right? So you don't start off with a vision that that's my end goal. You've got to value what sports gives to you as a human being, right? And I think that's the difference between raising a sports, and I think that's what PV Sindhu's parents did. Waking up at 4 a.m., packing the dabba, he would drop PV to practice, pick her up, drop her to school, bring her back at 1 o'clock, take that lunch break, and he was working. They did not have a social life because to wake up at 4 a.m., you need to go to bed at a certain hour.
Yeah.
What food they eat, how PV walks, even her, where she is dropped, where she was picked up, is the road okay? He would actually, he actually mentioned about he would walk the road that she was going to walk to see that, she doesn't lose balance or she wouldn't wear heels or whatever, because she did lose a tournament, some years for the tournament because she hurt her ankle. So that's the level of dedication you are talking about, a parent. If you have that, then you can expect those results. But somewhere we kind of, some of us fizzle out halfway through, and that's okay. That's okay too.
That's okay. But, my concern is for the parents in this case. Do you think that such parents forget to live for themselves? And are you living out your dream through your kids?
That's what I said at the start, right? Like, you have to enjoy the sport and know the value of the sport. Does sport bring you as much joy? Like Jemima's parents, the father absolutely loved cricket. He would play it in his home with he had two sons, both trained for cricket, but both didn't choose to make it their career, but Jemima did.
Yeah.
So, and I'm so glad he didn't differentiate between a boy and a girl. And he said, doesn't matter, my daughter's going to do it. So completely depends. I think you've got to value the sport and what it brings to the table for you to actually be so invested.
Yes.
Do parents live their aspirations, dreams through their children? If the child is gifted and has the talent for it, I think there's nothing wrong in making them realize their potential in that case. Like in case of Jemima's parents, the father was always wanted to be a cricketer, that for whatever circumstances he couldn't. He exposed all three of his children. Two chose to not do it, one chose to do it.
Yeah.
Is he living his aspiration through the child? Maybe yes, but is the child living her full potential? Yes.
Coming to, an interesting case in your book, Sushant, the last name is so difficult.
Divgikr.
Divgikr, yeah, because it's spelled right with a
Yes.
K and an R. All right, who is a singer, model, drag queen, identifies as trans, right? So that is always very difficult for the child, for the parent, for the family at large. And I like the incident that you narrated in your book where you said where Sushant's mother said that he wanted to dress as a Barbie for a fancy dress. And she went out of her way to help him. A lot of mothers would have been like, why does my little son want to dress as a Barbie? He should be Spider-Man, Batman, whatever it is that boys want to be. But why? But she didn't bat an eyelid. She went out and supported him. And that was great. And then when he came out, his father sort of almost pulled him out, like encouraged him to come out. That's great. What is the biggest lesson you learned from this story?
To me, Sushant's story is the one of complete embrace. And I think it's so beautiful. And if you meet his parents, they're the most adorable human beings because who Sushant is and how much he gives comes from his amazing parents, and I think all parents should meet Sushant's parents.
Okay.
They're just very sweet, and I think, the first part where Sushant's mom dressed him up like a Barbie, yes, a lot of parents would have hushed that demand and said, no, why do you want to be a Barbie? You can be anybody else. I feel parents have a problem, Anushka, with everything. If your child knows what they want, is the problem. If your child doesn't know what they want, is a problem. If your child says, मुझे ये चाहिए, highly opinionated. अगर child बोले मुझे नहीं चाहिए, highly confused, इसका तो कोई opinion ही नहीं. So what do you really want? I think he was very confident. He wanted to be a Barbie. Yes, you're feeding into something. I don't think when Bharti auntie said to Sushant, yes, you can be a Barbie, I don't think the conversation of whether the child is going to be gay, transgender, why does he have these demands, exist in her head. To her, she was just acknowledging what her child wanted to be.
Right.
And I think it's okay. Right? Acknowledging your child's feelings is okay. Right? Whether later what he chooses, what your family's decision is for the later part of it. But it's not for now to not acknowledge your child's feelings. Also, I think absolutely when he came, when he told his father that, yes, I am gay, and he said that, his father had complete embrace, complete surrender, we are with you. And I think whether it's the LGBTQI community or any other problem that your child has, the minute a parent's arm goes around the child, you are creating, and that embrace happens, you are creating a wall where you're saying you've already created a boundary where your child is protected.
Right.
And everything else is outside that boundary. Now nothing can come and hurt your child.
Yes.
And you've embraced, whether it's a problem, whether it's a situation, whether it's something that your child is dealing with or battling with, the minute you've done that embrace, you've accepted it. And your child is feeling secure within that circle. I just want parents to do that. Then you come from a position of information, which is, do you want to speak to somebody? Should we speak to experts? Should we speak to a counselor? Do you want to speak to fellow parents who are going through the same problem? So you're empowered with information to make a decision of your choice. Yes. You're not coming from oblivion, which I think is important.
No, absolutely. Like you said, embracing, accepting totally, forming that protective circle around your child, so important. Wish more parents would do that, would resolve a lot of mental health issues. So this Sushant's case brings me to a very important conversation about gender identity, right? I mean, this is now, a lot of people are talking about this. It's become the hot topic everywhere because people are talking about gender fluidity. Biological sort of gender doesn't really mean much now to many people because they can identify either way. It's causing a lot of mental health problems. Do you think this sort of woke attitude has gone a bit too far and it's confusing children?
Again, I think, whether we're saying things like woke or we're saying things like that, are we coming from a space of judgment?
Yeah.
Because what he or she is feeling is not a disease, right? Acknowledging those feelings is important, and then taking a decision from information is important. So, whether are we taking it too far, are we not having, I'm just glad we're having conversation about it. Just having that sort of foundation of information will make you as a family decide very, very differently versus just shoving that conversation under the carpet completely.
Okay, fine. So you got to address, the elephant in the room. You can't sweep things under the carpet. Yeah. Important to have information, important, right, to acknowledge things that your children are going through.
It's okay to tell your kids, okay, I've heard you. Sometimes we don't know as parents how to process it. I've heard you. I need time to process this. Just give me a day or so.
Yeah.
Let me also learn a little bit more about this.
Right.
So you're just buying time to also process it, because sometimes we need to understand and that we may not know how to react to a situation.
Yeah.
And the key is that you don't want to react. You want to respond to a situation. So it's very important that you get into this, from this reactive mode to this responsive mode. And you may need to find time to do that.
At what age is it okay to talk about gender fluidity, because I'll tell you, I'm talking about a lot of Western countries. Let's say countries like Canada, and I've heard it from people living there that they're seeing this sort of quite dangerous trans affirming care for minors, right? Where if a boy picks up a doll, a teacher, not even an expert, a teacher might tell him, oh, maybe you identify as a girl. And I've heard of this happening. How does a 6, 7-year-old, why should you be having this conversation with a 6, 7-year-old just because he plays with a doll?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so what? And and then what's happening is these countries are extreme, right? They're giving puberty blockers and allowing sex change surgeries even to minors, to teenagers, which I think is taking it too far.
Yeah.
Luckily in India, we haven't reached that stage. But I guess in India, what you're saying is that more people need to start acknowledging.
Yeah, just acknowledging what the child is feeling. I'm not saying acknowledging about whether it's a yes, whether it's a no, or acknowledging that just acknowledging that there is this people have different gender preferences, and that is okay. And the right age, you say, to ask this question is whenever the child asks you a question. Because I'm very clear, and I tell all the parents that I work with, I want to be the source of information for my child, and not Google or YouTube or any of that.
Yeah.
I'm very clear about that, because today if your child comes and asks you at age 6 or 7, he's heard it in the bus, he's heard it in the playground because he's playing with elder kids, he's traveling with grade 10 students. He's heard, okay mom, what is gay? You said, ye sab baatein nahi karte, chalo jao. So you've left it at that. But the child is a curious being.
Yeah.
He will go on the internet, or next time he gets your phone and say, gay, right? And then you have no idea what he is going to be exposed to. The amount of information needs to be tailored to the age group of the child.
Right.
That is very important. Like, you don't need to explain everything to a 6-year-old. Age appropriate information.
Yeah.
That is very, very critical.
Yeah. Okay. Balance being the key. True. Couple of questions I have before I come to a little bit of a rapid fire section. Mental health. We're seeing quite a few student suicides.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure from parents to become a doctor, engineer, go to IIT, all this. Especially in places, the coaching centers like Kota. And these children are 16, 17.
Yeah.
Do they really know what they want to be?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we allow them more time? And we're seeing this mental health crisis, especially in this educational sectors, where children feel like failures. How can we address this? What is your advice to parents?
According to WHO, kids between the ages of 10 to 19 form 13% load, part of the mental health load, right? 13% of the world mental health load is children between the ages of 10 to 19.
Yeah.
Staggering statistic. Then we're talking of 116 million children, according to UNICEF 2023 report, are children who are facing a mental health crisis. 50 million in India, right? This is a great number. Only 41% of children in India actually ask for help. Okay? Versus average in some countries being close to 80%.
Wow.
So my point here is that, are we talking about two parts to the problem? One is explaining what is mental health and why is it important. Second is what's causing this mental health problem. It's broken connections. It's telling your child this is it or there's nothing, right? Assuming that your child is constantly trying to fit into your definition of success.
Yeah.
Right? And the parent has assumed that the child's performance is their report card. Right? Which I think is extremely flawed. Right?
Yeah.
And you as a parent believe, IIT nahi to kuch nahi. Right? We've had two cases in the book. One is, I mentioned of this case with Sandeep Nelwal of Polygon. He didn't make it to IIT, and he still feels that it was a miss, right? Shlok Srivastav, again, big guy in the tech space on YouTube, didn't make it to IIT, but is doing fabulously well for himself. He's one of the largest and one of the best creators in this space, but didn't make it to IIT and still did his engineering and still is doing fabulously well for himself. So just to all the parents and the children, what seems unachievable at that point in time, or you haven't succeeded at it, it's not going to be your reality forever. You can change your narrative, you can change your reality in time.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that, like you said, it's okay. And why are these people, like these highly successful people, I can't believe that they still feel the slightly, bad, or they feel it was a miss that they didn't get into IIT. Especially in these coaching centers, depression, mental health crisis, suicide is becoming an epidemic.
Yeah.
And it's very scary. We need more people like you out there to tell the parents that, hey, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Take a chill pill.
Yeah, also, I think as parents, we become so transactional in our questions, right? Are you okay? Have you eaten well? Okay, teacher ne kya kaha? Like, think of questions you ask at the PTM, right from kindergarten, right?
Yeah.
How is he doing in maths? How is he doing in physics? How is he doing in chemistry? When was the last time at a PTM that did you ask, is my child happy? Is my child okay? Right?
Yeah.
Those are the questions that we need to ask. Because if your child is not happy, what's the point of all of this? Not getting into IIT is just one part of me. It's not the whole me.
No.
We're taking that as not getting into IIT is equal to Mansi. That's not me. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, again, quoting something which J. Krishnamurti said, which I just recently heard, if it happens to me, it's great. If it doesn't happen to me, it's better.
Yeah.
It's
I
for
love
the better.
that.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you didn't get in somewhere because God has bigger plans for you. I believe that. Lastly, before we get to these sort of quick parenting hacks, overindulgence. When are you overindulging your child? We live in a time of abundance, right? And you yourself said earlier about how, when you're having conversations about designer bags and shoes, this is what your what your children are going to pick up from you, and that's what they're going to prioritize. We're seeing this, at least, in the papers, unfortunately, we have read about terrible incidents that happened in the last few months, where an underage child was drunk, driving a Porsche, and killed 2 people, very sadly, in Pune. We saw that recently in Mumbai, again drunk driving in a fancy car. I mean, somewhere you got to blame the parents also for something like this. I mean, so just on this general topic of, like, are parents these days affluent parents indulging their children too much?
I think I don't want to generalize it, because I also can come back to the 3 cases in the book, right? Whether it was Amira Shah's parents, whether it was Harsh Jain's parents, whether it was Abhishek Loda's parents. Classic examples of grew up in abundance, but still created their own, which was bigger than their parents, right? So are we, I don't want to generalize and say all affluent parents doing this. No. But I think where it stems from is not affluence. I think where it stems from is values gone wrong very early on. And that's what I was talking about, right? Why are we addressing children in their 17, 18, 19 and post? Why are we not addressing it in the pre? Right? The child knows what the parent has taught. Right? So if the parent has said, this is the value of human life, maybe this is the value of human life. The parent has said, don't worry, we'll be taken care of all the time. It's not that one particular moment where the parent says that. The parent has been repeatedly saying that.
Right. Okay. Well, you said that's interesting. They've seen the parent not have value for human life, and so they don't have value. So it's really more about values. Absolutely. Let's go into some quick parenting hacks before we wrap up. So, I mean, I know it can't be like a complete rapid fire, but as quick as we can get. 1, getting small baby kids to eat without relying on the screen. I see this a lot.
Give them attention. Because any tantrum is is because they want attention. It's attention seeking. That's the stem and root cause of it.
Because I see a lot of 2-3-year-olds, they won't eat unless you make them watch Coco Melon.
They don't have somebody to have a conversation with.
How do you deal with your child getting bullied in school?
Talk to them about it. Tell them it is not okay. And like the Gita says, to be bullied is to bully is as much of a sin as it is to be bullied, right? So you've got to stand up for yourself.
What about what is the best age to speak to your child about sexuality, attraction, sex ed, stuff like that?
Whenever your child asks the question, whatever's the word, whatever's the phrase, whatever's the number, address it. Address it in age appropriate manner.
You are a mother of 2 girls. How do you deal with a girl who's going through hormonal changes at puberty and having mood swings?
Just acknowledging it, knowing that it's normal, and just really just being there, because I know as a woman I've been through that, and also to be empathetic of the fact that she's going through it, unable to articulate what she's feeling, and to know that that is the age for it, and also everything that she is telling me is not me. Detachment.
Detached.
Because I don't have to take it personally. She's saying it. She's not saying it to me. She's saying it because she's going through this little phase.
Right.
She needs to say it to somebody. And I keep saying this to parents, that between the ages of 2 to 5, your children will be really mean and nasty to you because they're most attached to you. And again, between the ages of 10 to 14, 15, they will go through that same phase. Again, because they're fighting for their freedom, fighting for their independence. Just understand that is not you. You're not a bad parent. She's just having a moment of her own.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. 2 to 5, 10 to 14, 10 to 15. You have 5 good years in between.
Totally.
When is it okay to allow your child to have a social media account?
I would say push it as much as later than 15 or 16, but the age limit on each of the apps is 13 plus, so definitely not before 13.
Best way to regulate your kids' social media use?
I think one is they're learning from you. They're learning. Also be aware. So follow Kids Chopra, because we share a whole bunch of tricks and tips which we've got from the social giants to understand the safest way to use the app for your child.
Okay.
I keep saying this, that there is, like example on Instagram, there's parental control, there's family center, so please make use of all of those devices, all those facilities and tools to have a more secure experience for your child. Talk to your child about it, about actually what happens on to social media. You know, don't share your location when you are until you haven't left the location. Don't share photos that you will regret. You know, you are creating a digital footprint. What you put out online can never be erased because someone somewhere's screenshotted it or got it. So make sure that you're very, 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 and trust me, it's never I told you so. That level, that way of parenting is no longer going to work.
Okay.
So it's about, let's do it together.
Easiest way to make your child eat healthy?
Eat it yourself.
Eat it yourself. Okay. Fine. And
if you're following me, you also know I put this story called Aaj Khane Mein Kya Hai very religiously on my Instagram. And everybody will know that, yes, somebody actually asked me one time, do your kids also eat this? And I was like, yes. So just eat it yourself.
Lastly, Mansi, what is the most valuable lesson you have personally learned as a parent from being a parent to your 2 girls?
I am not my child and my child is not me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on Buzz by the Bay. You've given some fantastic information and some wonderful tips. Thank you so much, Mansi.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
Okay.